Siddle bottle. Siddle. Siddle.
Good start.
City bottle it against Madrid. Liverpool do the opposite of whatever bottling is against Villarreal. We'll preview the terrific Champions League final that we got ahead of us, and we'll do a quick roundup on the A-League and find out where everyone fell in the final table there, and we'll also preview a bit of the playoffs as well. Play that music, son. Get your hands off your phone. Always on that damn phone.
We gotta update the people on the socials, bro. That's where it's at. The socials.
The socials.
The sociales.
The sociales. Now, we had some absolutely mental stuff happen over the last couple of weeks. Your boy was out with the vid last week, so we missed that. Luckily enough, though, it feels like everything happened in the last 7 days, so not a whole lot that we missed out on, I reckon. But we'll start with the big one because it's the one we care about the most. Madrid versus City. My goodness. What a bottling before.
What did I even watch?
Would you say all of Guardiola and City's nightmares came to fruition? Because I don't think you could have asked for it to go worse. I think if they had, from the outset, Madrid came out there and dominated the game or scored early or whatever have you, and they were out of it from the beginning, or the bottling was done early, so to speak, I think they would have walked away from it, been like, Madrid just turned up today. What can you do? But the fact that they dominated Madrid for literally 89 minutes, what felt like. They got a goal up, all hunky-dory, and then complete capitulation from there on.
I think it's worse that they lost it in a space of, let's say, including extra time, 10 minutes. They completely lost the tie in 10 minutes. That's the worst part. It's not the fact that they dominated and, they almost got away with it. I think it's the fact literally that the game turned on the whole tie. You've pissed away about, 180 minutes of normal time football in the space of 10 minutes on the pitch. You conceded goals within 30 seconds, and then you gave away a clumsy penalty to seal the deal. You've literally...
How do you feel about that pen, by the way? Just because I don't think we're going to really talk about specifically that pen. But is there anything in that? Is there any argument? Is there any conjecture?
I don't see... I think it was a fair call. I mean...
Okay.
I don't think it was a bad call, and I don't blame Diaz for doing it. It's do or die. So and he's a capable. It wasn't a rash tackle. It wasn't something done out of spite. You could see he's going for the ball.
Yeah, he was just in a very disadvantageous position to be in as a defender.
And Benzema saw it coming as well. So you have to give props to him because he knew what was happening and
he looked for it.
He looked for it. Yeah, he knew what to get out of it. But I just think that moment kind of summed up how City were after the goal, and it's easy to say it in hindsight, but when they went up and Pep started, trying to shut the game down, it almost felt like that goal was a bigger harm than it was a good thing for them. It literally after they scored, it's like they just. It's not that they stopped giving a fuck. It's not that they stopped playing. It's just literally they literally just went full coward.
They capitulated.
Cancelo literally had Vinny marked out of the game for a good portion of it, and then as soon as that goal happens, Cancelo turns into a ghost. Literally, turned. He's probably to blame for not tracking Benzema. As the ball's crossed in before he cuts it across to Rodrigo. I've never seen a man go from hero to zero so quickly like that. And then Laporte was also looking nervous. They were running out of ideas up front. And I think you're right in saying that it is a combination of their worst nightmares where they lose the tie based on their own performance rather than egregious call or the team just had a better day. And it's also funny that Grealish could have actually saved the tie and put them 2 goals ahead, but in some weird, evil way, Mendy makes a goal line clearance, and Courtois makes a cracker save with the tips of his boots, of the studs on his boots. So it's almost evil how cruel it was that they lost. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's about showing up when it counts, and
I
they
think
literally didn't.
to me, it's a massive indictment on them as a team to let Madrid back into it in the first place, right? Especially with the way they can play football. Like if City's the kind of team where if they want to have the ball for 10 minutes, they'll just have the ball for 10 minutes. Like if there's a team out there in the world where the coach can just snap his fingers and decide that the other team won't touch it for 15 minutes, it's City. Like there's no other team out there that can dominate possession like they do today, right? And the fact that at that time, because Modric, Cruz, and Casemiro were all out of the game by the 75th minute, something like that. Man, you're not dealing with any of those monsters anymore. I mean, if there's a time to be able to dominate possession, it's then. And if there's a time that you'd want to do that in the first place, it's then when you've got a 2-goal advantage in the Bernabeu in the last 10 minutes, right? You can't tell me that Guardiola wasn't asking that from his players. You can't, there's no feasible way where the way that they played those last 10 minutes was the way that Guardiola wanted them to play.
Yeah, no.
What I saw out there was the players capitulating under the moment, right? Feeling the pressure immensely. I think Cancelo is a good person to pick out for that because
even Gundogan, because he came on after, like towards the end to close the game, and literally just kind of froze.
No, he was anonymous. He was anonymous. Yeah, he was anonymous. But the thing with Gundogan, right, is like he's always been a hot and cold player, you know. And I don't want to. I'm not trying to say that he's not good, but like he's always been that sort of player where you can't guarantee a performance from him. You know, he's not KDB. He's not that kind of like consistent high level performer in the biggest moments, right? Whereas Cancelo, although probably not the same sort of thing, where he isn't like the biggest of big name players in the biggest moments, he's still a very consistent player. And what Pep asks him to do is the same thing he asks him to do week in, week out. So he's very well versed in what he needs to execute out there on the field. So he's a perfect example of this is a player who knows his role, knows what he needs to do, does it week in, week out. And now in the moment where he needs to keep that consistency, it all falls away from him. And I feel like that's what we've got across the whole Man City team, just to varying degrees. You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, I feel like the only player that not should come out with his head held high, because the reality is they all should feel very upset about this loss. But I think Sterling did what he can. You know what I mean? Like he's not got a big skill set. He's not a great finisher. He's not the guy for these big moments. We know that already about Sterling. He's a good Robin to someone's Batman sort of thing, right? But the fact that he played as okay as he did as a Robin without a Batman being out there, I thought that was a good performance from him. But other than that, I don't think there's anyone like. I mean, maybe I think Grealish plays.
Silva.
Yeah, but he's the teacher's pet. You know,
but to be fair, like
he's missed the consistency for City. Like I understand, like he's
but to be fair, like if there was the guy was still trying. He played the full 90 and a little bit of extra time. Like the guy was out there and he's pretty much on an empty tank, still putting out more effort than some of the other guys. Still
I guess my thing, the reason I can't point to him is I don't think Pep asks him to do a type of role that's particularly like business critical for the team. Like he's a great player. Obviously, he's a great addition to the team. Obviously, he's been their best player at some points when it hasn't been KDB. But I think like there's not like you can't blame Silva for the loss. At the same time, I wouldn't have expect Silva to be the reason that they won. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's a smaller cog. Yeah, right.
He's a smaller cog. Yeah, like for example, KDB being subbed out, right? That to me is a bigger indictment on KDB's performance, right? Than what's his name, Sterling being subbed out or something like that. Like where was KDB is the guy that should be a no question for a game like this. His performance should be perfect, right? The whole team is built around him, right? He's the man for them. He's the captain. His skill set is very well utilized in the Guardiola system. I'm just saying, like he's got everything going for him in this sort of game, and to just sort of wash out in the 70th. What was he subbed at? 70 something minutes, something like that. when the team is there to control the game, I think it's bad on his part for performing in a way that makes Guardiola want to take him off. But it's also a little not worrisome, but like it kind of shows Guardiola's not predicament, but like the way he sees the team. This is a closeout game in my opinion, the biggest game of City's life up until this point, right? Like they've been in a final or so on, but at the current stage, it's the game that matters the most in their history, right? To be able to continue this run into the final. The fact that he subs off his best player at a closeout time, that shows to me he doesn't really 100% believe in any of these players the way he's believed in players that he's had at Bayern Munich, the way he's believed in players at Barcelona. He wouldn't sub off Messi in this sort of position. He wouldn't have subbed off Lewandowski in this sort of position. Why is he subbing off KDB?
Yeah,
so I guess the question then becomes, who does Guardiola really trust truly in this team? I don't think that, maybe just Bernardo Silva probably.
Probably maybe Ruben and Bernardo, I reckon. Because Ruben doesn't, if he wasn't injured, he wouldn't lose his spot. He's always there. It's someone else. It's either rotation or it's his partner's rotating. It's Stones or Laporte or Ake or whatever. I just
asked then, right? How important is KDB, right? If it's a thought in Guardiola's head to be able to sub him off in such a crucial time. Because you can't tell me it's Guardiola's bad judgment. I mean, as much as I want to say, like, oh, he's a mistake to take off your best player, I have to trust the best coach in the world's mindset. He's got to have a good, eye for talent, right?
The thing, exactly. I don't know. I don't want to say he was redlining and he played a lot and they needed him for upcoming games. I don't know if that is the reason, then that's a piss poor excuse, because it doesn't matter. The games here on in after, I don't know who City have this weekend in the league, but either sub him out early in that game or just keep him playing. Just figure something out, because you have to roll
in run less
situations. Roll the dice.
Yeah, tell him to run less.
Run less. Stop moving.
Yeah,
put him at centre back. He doesn't have to play that much.
Or take out one of your other auxiliary midfielders and put in someone that's pure running to cover for it. I think that he's such a good coach, and he has so many sort of tricks up his sleeve that he surely could have figured out a way to keep KDB out there. So to me, it says he really wanted to take him off. Because if he wanted to keep him out there, he could have figured out a way. That to me is super strange. Like, this is such an important game, an important moment, when you had to control the game. And I mean, like, who's the first name you think of when you think of controlling the midfield for City? I mean, if it's not KDB, it's Rodri. So to take out half of that duo in the closeout minutes of the game, I feel like he doesn't trust the City guys as much as he's trusted players in the past. And I think that what that says, as much as we want to laud about how good this City team is and how much money City has spent and all that sort of stuff, I really don't think they've got a player in the team that is comparable to any of the greats that other teams have. Like a Salah, not even close. No one's even close to a Salah-like player. To a Van Dijk level player, not even close. And if you want to go outside, Benzema, who's Benzema like in the City team, where week in, week out, you can count on them to show up? I don't think so. They've every team they've beat this season, they've beaten with a siege mentality by outplaying them in all facets. Right? It's never been an individual performance anyway.
Yeah, I think it's been like the system, and then an individual having a standout game or exploiting a shortcoming in the opponent's game plan or positional man-to-man mismatch. Like I think of Foden or Mahrez or Gabby Jesus, in more recent times. I just think it's, what does the next step look like for City? Because all right, let's say they win the league, right? It works out, they win the league, but Liverpool win the Champions League. Like, what do you do as Man City? What is the next step? So you spent gazillions of dollars, you spent 100 million last season on a guy that can't feed you. You look at your bench, and the game really highlighted how I wouldn't say thin, because they're good players, but it's just like, all right, you're going to take off KDB. Who do you bring on? Oh, Gundogan. Oh, you're going to take someone. Are you going to take Mahrez off? Who are you bringing on? Oh, Sterling. Like, it's not. They're like different versions of each other. Like Sterling is more direct versus Mahrez is more hold up. You've got Gabby Jesus, who's not quite a striker, not quite a winger, but somehow scores goals. You've got Fernandinho, who's the equivalent of a human cigar for Pep, where he brings him in to close out games. He's too old. He's getting too slow. He can't keep up. So, and then you look at guys on the pitch like Laporte. They still don't have a left back. Their left back situation is it's Cancelo playing there for the majority of the time. You've got there's this besides KDB, maybe Bernardo Silva. If you want to look at it, personally, I think those two guys are the most and Ruben Diaz. Those three are irreplaceable, but the pieces around them just I don't know.
So so if you just go by like the symptoms they're experiencing, so like not a weak mentality because they've got a good mentality, obviously, but a weak mentality when it comes to the big moments, right? You look at that, that's one issue. Then you've got like the issue with goal scoring, that's another thing, and then you've got the issue with like squad depth. It's not squad depth, but like they're thin in certain positions, let's say, right? So you've got these sorts of problems. That tells you like you probably need to do a bit of not a rebuild, of course, but like you need to do a bit of like a group buy, right? You need to go and get 3, 4, 5 signings, smart signings, that are players that are filling of those roles that you need them to fill, but also of the kind of ilk that they don't currently have at the moment. I'm talking grafters, people that actually have a pair of nuts on them. That's also one thing that I just wanted to point out. Some of the best teams, the best Guardiola teams that we've seen in the past, there's always an on-field coach. There's no on-field coach with this team. KDB puts the armband on, but he gets pink anytime he shouts. So he's not that kind of guy. Yeah, exactly. Like he's a leader by example, He's headstrong, he doesn't cave into the moment, that sort of thing, right? He's not a, grab a guy by the scruff of his neck and pull him along sort of guy. So there's that as well. An on-field general is probably very useful to a Guardiola team, because of this symptom that they're experiencing of capitulating. It'd be good to have some more leadership out there on the field. I think most of us thought maybe Ruben Diaz would be someone like that. A lot of injuries this season, so hard to count on him the whole way through. But also, I think I'm slowly finding out that although he's a stalwart defender, he's not a shouty guy. He's not like yelling at Laporte, yelling at Cancelo. He's not, he just kind of does his role sort of thing. So I think that's something that they need to cover. But to me, that's a boring way to go about solving the issue. Like that solves everyone's issue. Well, if we just go and get 5 or 6 players that do the things we need them to do, and a couple of them that have the heart that we need them to have, problem solved. We're all good. I think it's hard to do that. It's also sort of boring. It's also more long term. Those players will take a while to gel into the system, and Guardiola always takes a year to figure out what the guy needs to do to keep his starting minutes and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like it's probably the more pragmatic solution and probably the more cerebral way to go about it. But I really just think they need to roll the dice and get a big name striker. That to me is because the thing is, right, at least you tried it. At least you did it, and you can shut the critics up, and Guardiola can go to sleep at night saying my false nine way of doing things is the right way, and that's it, But you got to try it out, because we can't have this many years of this shiny-headed motherfucker at Manchester City, right? And never once have him with a striker. As much as people want to go back to, but in the Barcelona days, they played without a striker. Messi's in everything. Messi's a 9, he's a 10, he's a winger, he's a forward. He scores headers in the Champions League grand finals. Like he's a striker. He's a striker as much as he's a number 10, right? And at Bayern Munich, he had Lewandowski, right? And he had Muller, who could fill in there as well and be a bit of a poacher in the box. At City, he had Aguero, where they never really won the Champions League, so to speak, but they never had a problem scoring goals in tight moments, right? They never actually got the opportunity with Aguero. They made it to the final where he didn't play. He came on for a couple minutes, a bit of a cameo.
Well, they caught the tail end of his time at City, and plus him and Pep clearly didn't get along.
They clashed. Which is fair because Aguero doesn't like to train, and Guardiola likes people to put the same effort in training as they do in a game. So
exactly. Yeah.
That was never going to work.
Well, to be fair, Aguero didn't feature much under Guardiola. He wasn't his first choice, and then I think eventually Guardiola figured it out. Like, shit, I actually need this bloke.
I need him, right? And that should say something. That should say something that Aguero, a guy who's not a Guardiola type of player at all, still cracked into the lineup because they needed a finisher. They needed someone in the box to score goals, and I think that's what they just need to go down here with. I think they're going to get Haaland. That seems like what everyone's saying, right? That's the one bubbling around the most. I think that's a terrific pickup if they do get Haaland. I think he fits the system well. He's a hard-working player. He's got a much better passing game than people give him credit for, because he just kind of just doesn't look very graceful in the build-up, but he does offload the ball very well. So I think that's the way they solve the problem. That's the wrong way to say it. I don't want to say that's the way they solve the problem because I don't know how they solve the problem. But that's how I would solve the problem for them. That's how I would try.
Yeah, I think that's probably the I guess the biggest addition that you can kind of go for. Like keep the sum of the parts the same, but just find someone to get you to just get the ball to them and have a shot. How Haaland would work out, I don't know, because I know he likes to run in behind a lot. And when you're with City, you're not. That's not the goal. Everyone is going to sit back as far as possible and make it difficult for you to do that exact thing. So how he works out, look, he's young, he's coachable, which is exactly what you need. How it's going to work out, what it's going to cost them, we don't know. And if the Abu Dhabi group is ready to throw all that money at them. It's gonna be a great signing, I think, but it's again like, what are they gonna pull the trigger? There was all the talk of Kane, and Kane was, to be fair, if you're paying 100 whatever million for Kane, you might as well just chip in an extra couple and get Haaland.
Get Haaland,
We've got a longer, shelf life, and he's more coachable and younger. Whereas, what's the shelf life on Kane? So the only concern I have around Haaland is just his injuries with his ankles and stuff, and the fact that he doesn't stop playing. He just plays through injury, which isn't indicative of a longer career. But tangent aside, I think maybe the striker. It's hard to say. I think one thing I want to see, well, not one thing I want to see, but more so just kind of explore is, what does City do after Pep? Because Pep can pull this thing at any time. He did extend his contract, but any time he can just go, you know what, I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm done. That decision always looms around Pep. I don't think he can ever shake that off. I
think they fall quite hard if Pep leaves. Because I don't think any other coach makes this team play as well as he does, because
it's a complete rebuild. Inside out. Even your youth teams would probably have to get rejigged. Like, it's a complete strategy shift to another way of playing. So it's hard to say to move on from Pep, but at some point, if you don't want to give up either, of course, but it's at some point you kind of have to start looking like, what do we need to pull the pin on this and say, Guardiola, do you want to go on a sabbatical? Like, what do you want from us that helps
I think that's probably that's more reason to explore the striker avenue, because if you get a striker in, right, and it's the same result, then you're almost certain, like, we got to go a different direction. We got to move away from the Pep saga. Because then you've tried every single thing under the book, right? Whereas if they just run the dice the same way again, I mean, like, what's the fucking definition of psychosis? It's like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Yeah, definition of insanity. So it's like, you got to just explore, even if it goes against what your philosophy is, even if it's just like, no, but we score 1 million goals in the Premier League every year without a striker, and no matter what, like, sort of way you want to, cut the cake sort of thing, I think you just got to get a striker in to quash that thought and be able to move on, right? Because if they get Haaland in, or Harry Kane, or like someone, an unequivocally great striker, just someone who everyone knows scores goals no matter where he goes, if he shows up at City and it's, same sort of result, then okay, we gotta move on to a different tactic here. We gotta move on to a different sort of philosophy or a different era, because we've tried everything for this sort of style and it's just not working.
And
but at the same time, do you want to, like, if you're winning the Premier League once every 2-3 years, like, does it matter?
I don't know.
Like, I get the Champions League is the big crystal, but like,
what do you do after you win it as well? Like, even if you do win it, do you just tell them, hey, bro, goal accomplished, see you later? We're just gonna start the save over the save pile. Like, what do you do? But I just think also with City, they've done a lot of signings recently where they're just filling in like they're more role players, like or replacement or just
like Jack Grealish, right? Like 100
like
mil
Grealish.
role
Yeah,
player,
exactly.
4 goals, 3 assists. Just
Yeah,
another cog.
yeah,
100
just
mil
another call. Like
cog.
Ruben Diaz was the last big, starting 11 signing, which they needed
Yeah.
a good center back. But after that, like there hasn't been a big splash signing, like there hasn't been a statement of intention, like you haven't, Foden came up through
Man,
the academy, but
if
there
if
hasn't
if
been a
Jack
big.
Grealish heard that, that's gonna be the. I know it probably wouldn't affect him at all because I don't think he cares about that stuff. I don't think he sees himself as too great a player. But how can you be $100 million signing and like you're one of the? It's hard to call him a wonder kid because he's like 30 something. He's not 30 something. He's like 20 something. But he just feels like he's been around forever. You're you're $100 million signing where it's been every transfer window you're in the rumors and all that sort of thing, and it
You
actually
get the
turns
number
out
10.
you get the number 10, and it actually turns out you're an unimpactful signing. You just another one of the bunch. That's gonna hurt, right? Like fuck.
100%.
How
100%.
is $100 million signing not a statement of intent? But it really isn't. It really
No,
meant
like
nothing.
literally, like it
Their
was just
odds of winning the title didn't go up or down in
no,
Jack
and
Grealish.
it's not like you're gonna go, yeah, Jack Grealish, that's the guy that's gonna take him to the
There he
Champions League
is.
final. Like if the best case scenario, his ceiling is that at that, like he's part of the reason why, but he's not the reason why they would win the Champions League. It's like it's a weird time we live in where $100 million doesn't £100 million, sorry, doesn't
Well,
win you
let's
a Champions League.
if he scores one of his goals right in this Madrid game, right? I think that's his first or second goal in the Champions League. I don't think
I
he
think it
scored
might be
more than
second. I'm sure there's a tap in
second.
somewhere.
Okay, he might even be his third goal in the Champions League, whatever it may be, right? But that would have been it. That would have been his entire impact on the run to the title if they went through the final and then won it there. Unless he scores like a hat trick in the final or something like that. But there you go. You paid $100 million to get 2 or 3 goals. That pushes you across finally across the threshold, and you get the Champions League title. But like that's $100 million though. That's
it's so
that's
much money
ridiculous. You'd think
just to
that
get it.
a $30 million player would be the kind of guy that would give you that one or 2 goals that puts you across the line. Not 100. You think 100 mil would be? You know what you think 100 mil would be? You think 100 mil would be the player that will play the 120 minutes in the semi-final. Sweats the shirt the whole way through. That's what you think you get for $100 million. 100 million pounds. But you don't get that. You get a guy that comes on in the 75th minute.
Yeah, and maybe scores 2 goals and then disappears. But again, like to look across the pond, you've got PSG who signed Neymar for 220 million and still nothing to show for it in the Champions League.
Yeah,
So,
but I know that. I understand that. But Neymar has played 25% of his games in Ligue 1. And his productivity is still triple what Grealish has put together.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand you're right. That can happen to anyone. You pay 300 million and you get a dud. That can happen to you. I understand. But this dud Neymar so happens to be partying every weekend on the piss, like barely
branding as well.
Yeah, barely giving a shit. And he's still doing much better than the guy who apparently getting the number 10 jersey made his day. So like I get it.
And he's already got a Champions League. Neymar's got trophies already with MSN.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah, his productivity is not as great as he expected to be for the dollar value, but you can see exactly why his productivity is low. He's taken the piss, right? Yeah. Whereas Grealish isn't taking the piss. Actually, he's being taken the piss out of by Guardiola because he's 100 mil sit on the bench, bro. Like crazy stuff. Wait your turn. It's all right. Comb your hair. You'll be all right. Gotta look at Madrid for a bit here because we've just been ripping on City the whole time. Rodrigo with probably the most clutch goals he's ever going to score. I mean, he's a great player. He's a good player, but like I don't see him as this kind of player where he's like showing up in the big moments, scoring goals. But amazing stuff. A header in between City centre backs, like that's unforgivable in my opinion. You can't have a little scrawny winger beating you in the air like that in the closing minutes of a Champions League game. I don't think Edison, should have come out for it or anything, but I just feel like he could do a little bit better there. That header's always going into that corner, I don't. You see where Rodrigo's standing. There's no way he's going to hit that top bins. It's always going to be a flick on. Yeah, I think Edison could have done a little bit better there, to be honest with you.
I think he's probably shell shocked, like we don't. He kind of gets stuck, and it's like shit, like I don't know. He's like he saw the cross coming. He's like, no, surely not.
Exactly. But you'd hope that he wouldn't be like that, That's the thing about being a big team's goalkeeper, especially a team like a Barcelona, a City, or a Bayern Munich that dominate possession. You're probably not going to have to make a lot of saves, but you have to be there when you have to be there. You know what I mean? He was essentially, he could have taken out a fucking chair and had a seat for the first 89 minutes, Unfortunately, it does mean that when the moment is called upon, you need to rise to it. Otherwise, we're going to hold you to that one moment. I'm not going to say, Edison, you did great keeping a clean sheet up to the 89th minute, because in all honesty, it wasn't his job to be doing that. It was the midfield and the pressing and all that kept Madrid away from his goal. So sorry, bruv, you got to show up when we need you. So I'm going to hold him to it. There's a reason why he doesn't get picked in the national team sometimes. He's not a better shot stopper than Alisson, in my opinion. Much better distribution, that's obvious. He's got a very high risk, high reward strategy. But I'll remind you that in the Champions League final last year, was it last year that Chelsea won?
Yep.
Yeah, in the Champions League final last year, that high risk, high reward particularly didn't pay off. And now we're seeing that maybe if you just had a better pure shot stopper in there, instead of a fella that can ping the ball to your left back and right back, maybe you go through into the final in this one. So, just I'm splitting hairs because it was a hard header to save. It's not entirely his fault, but I don't know. I just feel like he's got to make a save, bro. Show me the highlights of Edison's clutch saves. Are there any?
No, I can't remember. I think he's had a few. To say that I don't know. I think he had a good couple of saves in that game, but like you said, he could have. I can't remember now.
I think the problem is like every big fixture that City's been in over the last 3 years, they've lost. So it's kind of hard to pick out a moment where he's making a big save in a loss. You know what I mean? Whereas if they won those games, you can look back and go, "Oh, that save was key. That save won them." Blah blah blah. Kept them in it. That sort of thing. But the reality is, the way City's lost these big games, it's always been the same story where they dominate for 90 minutes and then something capitulates on them, right?
Yeah,
and you don't want to. You can't hold that to Edison. It's not his fault that he has to deal with one shot all game and it goes in. But at the same time, maybe we should get a guy that can save that one shot. I don't
know. To be fair, I think what Edison adds with his footwork and with his distribution can, especially when he gets an overhead, not an overhead. So when he kicks the ball long into some of those spaces and is able to kick a counter off real quick. I think that's worth its weight as well. But again, it's
but do those happen? Like if we were to look back on all the times Edison's had assists or been part of the build-up, right? Do they happen against Liverpool, Chelsea?
No, of course, no, of course.
Do they happen against in the big games in the Champions League final? Like they don't. They happen when they're beating a team 3 or 4-0. So it's like how much more does that give you? That's still just 3 points at the end of the day. That's why I feel like he's their goalkeeper. He fits their team so well. He's just natural for the way that they play. But I think sometimes you may need to go against your meta, so to speak, to adhere to the fundamentals of the game. But again, he's not a bad shot stopper. He's not a bad goalkeeper or anything like that. But it's just like maybe he's not the best goalkeeper when he's cold for 90 minutes and doesn't have to deal with anything. But either way, I'm splitting hairs. I'm just picking on Edison for the sake of it. But yeah, Rodrigo, clutch goals. Camavinga, ridiculous off the bench.
As soon as I saw him come on, I'm like, fuck, here we go.
That honestly, that was where the KDB was missed the most, right? I mean, I'm not expecting KDB to be out there tackling Camavinga, but the way Camavinga hustled and harried everyone in the midfield for City, I don't see KDB succumbing to that pressure as much. So I think that they deal with it a little bit more. Having him on and not have to deal with Casemiro, Kroos, and Modric anymore would probably been good for KDB as well. But we never got to see that, unfortunately. And then Camavinga come on, and there was a power vacuum. Because you think about it, like Casemiro, Kroos, and Modric left. That's number 1, 2, 3 of Madrid's midfielders. And on the other side, KDB left. So you've got out of the 5 best midfielders in the game, they're all on the bench. And now you've just put on Camavinga, who's an all-action midfielder. He just ate up everyone in the field. It looked like none of them have any business being out there with him. It was ridiculous. So absolute masterstroke of a fucking substitution that was. And look, Pep with the Simeone style subs, they dicked him a little bit. Went to close the game out, which when's the last time Pep made these style of subs?
That's what I was thinking as well. I was like, it's I don't know if it's selective memory or something like that, but in Pep's time as a coach, I don't remember him making subs to close out a game. It maybe get some fresh legs in, or put a certain player in to add a different dimension, or deal with something that in response to the opponent's something that the opponent's done. But I've never seen him sub his attacking threats to close out a game. It was a very Simeone-esque move, and he kind of worked out like it did for Simeone and his subs, where he completely where he ruined the flow of the game for him.
Yeah. Do you reckon if you ask Don Carlo before the game, hey, you get to pick the subs that Manchester City make, right, to favor your team the most you can, what would you do? I reckon he does those subs.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's like, give me the.
I was like, take KDB out, stick Sterling on, stick Grealish on. Yeah, terrific.
And you could see
it's just so strange to me that Guardiola went down that path.
Yeah, it might be again selective memory, but I don't remember him up until this season doing subs to close out the game. Which is he did it against Madrid in the first leg. He did it again now, and I think in the previous round he did it as well. So it's a lot of questions, but look, fair play to Ancelotti. Played it to T. Going to the four strikers up front, 2 in the middle. Just really once
taking off the spine, Cruz, Casemiro, and Modric. That's ballsy as fuck to do that.
Yeah, and
take all of them off.
Yeah, he took all of them off, but also to ride on these attack rather than these defense. He's like, you know what? I'll just throw everyone forward, pressure each person in the back so they can't hold the ball and move out, and we'll just keep on their throats, and it paid off. As soon as they went to like a 4-2-4, it's straight away Vinny was back in the game. Rodrigo was involved. Benzema was involved. Everyone was just kind of harrying and narrowing, and eventually it felt like they were literally just closing in on that final third more and more as the game went on. And then you had the likes of Carvajal whipping in fantastic balls as well. So it was well thought out, well responded to, I think, by Ancelotti as well, and well played by all the players to execute as well, because it's easy to make the sub, but it's difficult to actually execute it like City would.
I got a question. This is the last thing we'll talk about for this one before we move on to Villarreal and Liverpool. Do you think Pep regrets saying that it was a good result to win 4-3 at home? Because to me, that's bananas.
He regrets a lot. I don't think he regrets a lot, because he's a manager where all his words are taken verbatim. And sometimes what he says isn't a true reflection of what he wants. It's more sometimes sarcasm or snappy, something like that. Look, winning 4-3 is not the best result, considering you were up 4-2 or 4-1, whatever it was in the first leg, and the fact that you conceded 3 goals is a little dicey, because he got dicey towards the end, and again, he got dicey towards the end, but he wasn't as lucky this time. He didn't have that cushion.
Yep.
I think it's good to win a shootout sometimes, and just beat them by simply scoring more goals, as Michael Owen would say. But I don't know. I don't think he would regret it.
I think to me that was the beginning of the end, because it showed me that at least it seemed to me that he wasn't as worried about the Real Madrid mysticism that everyone else was, right? Because personally, if I come out of that game as the coach, after seeing what they've done to Chelsea and what they've done to PSG, I'm upset that we only kept it to a 1-goal difference, right? That we needed that to be as wide as possible to feel more comfortable. right? And the fact that it was a 4-3, not a 2-1 or a 1-0 or something like that, that kept that so close. The fact that you were multiple goals ahead, when you could, because the thing is, they control the ball so much, and if they want to have 20 minutes straight without Madrid touching it, they can if they decide to, right? So the fact that they let them come back into the game and keep the scoreline as close as they did, he should have at least shown to us that he was aware of the fact that that wasn't a good way to walk into this game because of what Madrid has done in the past. Because that would have at least shown me that the way that this game turned out was at least a planned sort of outcome for the game. But it seems to me that he went into this game going, oh, if we lose this game, it's because they play better than us, not because we capitulate in the last 2-3 minutes, right? Which to me is idiotic, given the fact that that's the only way they fucking lost the last 2-3 years is capitulations like that. And that's the way Real Madrid's won all of their games coming into this one. So you couldn't have asked for two better actors to play these roles. You know what I'm saying? Like the team that loves to play the role of capitulation in the last 10 minutes and the team that loves to play the role of, spoiling the party right at the end.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the fact that he didn't display any awareness towards that. Whether he may have had that awareness and not displayed it in those interviews because he's doing some gamesmanship or whatever it is, I don't give a shit. Your players watch the interviews, your fans watch the interviews. These are the quotes we take away, and it's what affects the mentality of players going into games. He should have taken it as a moment to rally his team. I think to me that moment was the beginning of the end. Right?
The thing is, they rallied in that game to win 4-3. That's the thing. Like it was that it got dicey towards the end, and Fernandinho got skinned and all that, and it got close. But they rallied to go and keep your lead ahead. So it's like I don't know. I have to watch the press conference in full because I remember him saying that, but I don't know what the tone or what it was, but. It's they rallied in that game.
He was saying they played well. He was saying they played well. He's like, I'm proud of my guys. They played well.
I'd be proud too if they rallied back. Like I'd be upset. I wouldn't. The thing is, what you tell people on the outside is probably different to what you say in the locker room. Knowing Pep, I think he probably eviscerates a lot of people in the locker room. If something, we've seen him on the sideline, literally grab them by the scruff of their shirt. It's like fucking. Just do what I told you to do, or go there, or do this. So I don't know. It's I always take the press conferences with a little bit of grain of salt, especially from Pep, just because they I don't know if they're always a true reflection of his thoughts.
I don't.
There's something in there to look at it.
The reason I don't do that is because I can't get in his head. You know what I mean? All I can do is listen to the statements that you say and then watch the actions that precede it, right? And the statement you said was, we played well in this game. I'm proud of my boys, right? And you let Real Madrid back into the game. And then in the very next game, you do the same thing to more dire consequences and lose, right? Your actions, followed up exactly to your statement. So whether you meant them or not, they occurred and they turned out to be true. So it's a case of, I get whatever sort of, your intentions that you may have behind. I can't judge you on your intentions. I don't see them. I only see your actions. And your actions were, you said you played really well, and then you went into this game doing the same sort of shit, and it bit you in the ass. So all I can say is that your plan was garbage from the beginning. You misread them from the start, and you underestimated them. What he said showed that because of that statement, he underestimated them, and the way he performed was an underestimation of them. Right? Because you don't make defensive subs. Making those defensive subs was the only way in which Madrid saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Right? Was the only way is that if all of a sudden Man City stopped this pressing, stopped this possession control, and we can start getting the ball again. That was the only way that they could get back in it. And what happens in the last 10 minutes? Exactly that. Right? And by design, because if you look at Pep's subs, they were the kind of subs that he would make expecting to lose possession of the ball and just start to hold his lead, right? So it's, all I can judge you on is, bro, you said something that looked like an underestimation, and then you made changes in the game that, were those underestimations again. So I can't do anything but assume that you underestimated them.
Fair enough. I mean,
unfortunately for the bald fraud, I think you got it wrong.
I think at the end of the day, I think it was an amalgamation of two things: the players putting their heads down and then Pep not making the right decisions with the substitutions and their mindset. But look, I think the only way we'll find out the real answer is in 10 years' time when we read his autobiography.
Yeah, true. That's true. Fuck, he's gonna put out a good one, I reckon.
No, first I'll buy
hope
the
he writes it himself.
hardcover.
Yeah, I hope he writes it himself. He seems like the kind of guy that'd be able to. All right, let's get into Villarreal versus Liverpool here. We'll do it quickly because we've spent a lot of time on Madrid.
The
and
Mad
City.
Lads, the Yellow Submarine. They nearly did it. They nearly sank the battleship.
And look, this is another thing, right? This to give you the exact same thing. Unai Emery, what did he say after the game? The first one, he's like, "Look, terrible stuff, but they're gonna suffer now. I'm gonna make sure that they suffer, right?" And what happened? They suffered. Why did they suffer? Because the man executed the game plan that was appropriate to deal with this team, and his statement before that game aligns with that. His statement of they're gonna suffer makes me think, oh, he does have something up his sleeve, right? So to me, he said what he said aligned with the changes and subs and way in the tactics he outlined, right? So that gives me a fairly clear view into what he was thinking, because what he said aligns with what he did, right? Do you agree that what Unai Emery said in that press conference is, I'm going to make them suffer? Was that bravado? Was that gamesmanship? No, it was literally what he was thinking. So I'm taking the same thing with Guardiola, right? I can't say, oh, it's a double entendre. Oh, it's mind games. He says one thing to the press and one thing to his players. Unfortunately, what he says on the press goes on TV and his players watch TV and it gets said to them, right? It's all one, baby. It's all one thing. It's all one charade. What Mourinho does in the press conferences is as important as what he says in the locker room, right? It's the same way for Guardiola. It's the same way for Unai Emery, right? So that's kind of why I held those words that Guardiola said so true. Whether he meant them or not, he said them and he acted on them. It's the same thing for Unai Emery here. So I got to give him credit, man. He said that they were going to suffer. He said we're going to give him a good game, and boy, did they. I think that it's probably the best way to lose a semi, you know? Go into it as underdogs. Yeah, die on your sword, play really well. But yeah, not really much.
Which no one expected Villarreal to do, really. Like, they got two quick goals. No, if you told me, hey, they're going to have a 2-goal lead within the first half an hour, I would have said you're lying, or something had to happen where it gave them an opportunity, like a penalty or an egregious score. But the fact that they did it straight through the middle as well.
Does this highlight one of the big differences between Klopp and Pep? Because Klopp's team, 2 quick goals, starts spelling dire, moments for them. Maybe there's a bottle job on their hands, yada, yada, yada. What's Klopp do? He makes the perfect substitution. His players don't lose their heads, right? And they're able to seal the victory. The complete opposite of City's predicament. I know that you could say, oh, the players themselves, they're more headstrong, they're more mentally, fortified. But that began from Klopp, whether it's his own scouting and analysis to pick those players or his nurturing of them when he joins the team. The reality is their mental fortitude is a reflection of his coaching skill. So I feel like it's a perfect comparison of like, this is what they can do for you. Guardiola can make your team play like absolute monsters, but he will have falling out with your players. Anyone that has a bit of an abrasive personality will clash and eventually bounce out. He's never going to have a guy that he nurtures to the point of becoming, a leader for the team. He's always going to be the big daddy, so to speak, right? He's never going to split that with anyone else. Whereas Klopp, on the other hand, he's nurtured big talents. He's brought in big personalities and make them play. He's made them buy into his system. He brings players from, the edges of the world, and he gets them to buy in, and he immediately gets them to understand and gel with the team. I'll give you a comparison. Luis Diaz plays on the same flank as Jack Grealish, doesn't speak the fucking language, never played in the league before, comes in, scores goals, impacts the game, whether it's 10 minutes or 40 minutes. Terrific stuff. Why? Because I think Klopp gets him right into the system, right? Whereas Pep takes a year to get the players. If they're a player like Jack Grealish that likes to have his fucking socks down to his ankles and do all that little side shit, it takes even more. It's more friction, right? So I think this has been a nice comparison to be like, not to say like Klopp's better than Pep or the other way around, but it just shows their skill sets,
I think it shows that To your point, like you were saying about City, there's no Liverpool have a captain. They have an on-field captain, a few of them, and
Yeah, they do have
grafters
a
in
few.
the team, and a
Yep.
talisman. Those three players in Henderson, Van Dijk, and Salah all are the difference, and they all made a difference this game. You can really see like the on-field captain, the grafters, the talisman. They all contributed to them clawing back. Now, to your point, and again with the squad thing that I was talking about with City. When you look at Liverpool's squad, if it's not Mane, it's Luis Diaz or Diogo Jota, or if it's not him, it's Firmino. The parts are interchangeable, but they're of the same standard or offer a different. They're not alike for like. It's more of a okay. So this guy is going to give me this against a personal matchup, or like against Newcastle. None of the it was Jota, Diaz, and Mane. Literally
Yep.
didn't look like they skipped a beat. It looks like the same. It looked like the same deadly trio, just a different
Yep.
version of it. The midfield, you can change the parts in it, but it still functions the same. I think you're right in saying that. The fact that Klopp can get this out of players, where Pep is more so like a linear rather than being it's a linear hierarchy rather than like everyone on the same
Yeah.
plane.
Yeah.
I think it goes to show the strategy in transfers between the two teams, because you've got, I don't know how much say Pep really has in it, because I don't think Pep is going to go, yeah, I want Grealish. I don't think that's
Yeah.
it.
No.
Whereas
No.
maybe Klopp does have equal say or less say, but the success and the biggest driver of Liverpool's success is that transfer
See,
committee they
do you
have.
do you think so? So the thing is, right? I agree with you in the
Mm,
sense that I don't think that Pep's in there like, hey, give me Jack Grealish or anything
mm,
like that. I don't think that's the way that their purchasing works. But I also think if you were to sit Pep down and be like, all right, give me your analysis on who you want, I don't think that's in his game. Like, where
mm.
has he done that? Has
No,
he
no,
done that anywhere? No, he's not.
no.
But Klopp, that is his game. He's got an eye for talent. He relies on his scouts. Like he has that sort of thing. So I
Mm,
think that although yes, you're right, Pep's not the guy at pulling the strings for the transfers. I also think he doesn't look that much in there. I think he's like,
mm,
dude, you fucking whoever shows up, they're gonna play my philosophy anyways.
mm,
They're gonna do what I say they're gonna do. So I don't care if it's player A or player B. I don't give a fuck. You know what I
mm,
mean? Whereas
yeah,
Klopp, I think he gets in there. He gets in
mm,
their faces. I want this guy, this guy, this guy, and here's my list
mm,
of reasons as to
mm,
why. You know what I
mm.
mean?
And
I
then
don't
they
think
come back
Pep's
into
got
that.
that in his game. I don't think he's got that, that academy building type sort of guy.
Mm,
I think he appreciates that. He's good with youth players, and like
mm,
I'm not saying he's got a bad eye for talent. I just
mm.
think he's not an X's and O's type guy who's out there looking on fucking transfer mark trying to find good
No,
deals.
no, no.
He's just
I
not that
think
guy.
he's more of a guy, like if you look back to his first stint at Barca,
Mm,
where he picked out guys like Busquets, Yefren, those guys, and even to an extent Pedro as well.
yeah,
He was there already, and he saw the eye test, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna bring them
yeah,
up.
yeah.
It's the
Bring him up
same
like
thing with
Foden.
Foden. Same thing
Yeah,
with Foden, exactly.
yeah.
He saw
But,
it
but
as
you're not gonna.
he's an incubator of talent rather than
Yeah.
like a guy that goes, oh, that's who I want. He's like, all
Whereas I
right,
feel like,
he buys into what I'm saying. He's got the skill set
yeah,
to do what I want, and his talent is limitless. So I'm gonna
yeah,
incubate him to make sure that he's protected and understands fully, so that he can reach his full potential. Which is
yeah,
something that Klopp is good at doing that as well,
yeah,
but he's not the same level, because Klopp's more like, I already wanted him to be here, so
yeah.
will be a success. Whereas he's more
Klopp's yeah.
nuanced to get it, more
Also
arty about it.
different understanding of the game. I feel like
Mm,
Pep is the kind of coach who, player by player, he has more to offer them in terms of do this, don't do that, stand
mm,
here,
mm,
don't stand there, that sort
mm,
of thing. Whereas Klopp can do that on a team level. I don't
mm,
think he's like a 1v1-on-1, growth type of guy. But at the
mm,
same time, if you were to like go, what's the whole skill set of finding, nurturing, growing, and optimizing a player, I think Klopp's a nice, B plus A through the whole
mm,
sort of thing.
mm,
Whereas Pep is very, very good at the nurturing and incubation of talent, but pays absolutely no mind to scouting,
mm.
signing the right players, having a good wage structure. I don't think that
No,
plays in
yeah,
his mind
in
at all.
that case, it's like, give me what you got,
No.
and then
Yeah.
I'll figure it out if they work or not.
Whereas
It's just
Klopp is like, I want this guy, I want to pay him this much, I want him to play this many minutes, and I want to play this role. You know, like everything is thought out and engineered from the beginning. It's Germany versus Spain. That's all it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, but yeah, look, great stuff from Liverpool here. Luis Diaz, man, signing of the season. Is it like who else? Who you throwing in
Probably
there?
one of the best January signings we've had in a long time because he's hit the ground running. Pretty much, he
But
hasn't.
who's had as big an impact on their team that's been a signing in the last 12 months?
Jack Grealish. No,
Well, to be fair, right, even though he's not been good, like realistically though, he's probably one of the ones that's up there because I can't think of any other big moves that
Lukaku
have.
didn't pan out.
Lukaku's been worse than Grealish, so
Lukaku hasn't panned out. I just can't remember all the transfers. Ronaldo's been okay for United. Like I guess it's not Ronaldo's fault. That's the problem. It's not his fault. He's done his job to an extent to where he's scored goals and he's been the guy at the forefront. But the rest of the team let him down with no service and no inspiration to play. So by proxy, he's dragged into the quagmire that is Man United this year. So I think Ronaldo's been okay. Lukaku nowhere near what we expected. You know what? I actually expected him. I never expected him to fail this badly. Like I knew there was a scenario where it would and could happen, but not like this. So but Luis Diaz.
You know what I thought?
Yeah.
You know what I thought would be worst case for him? I would think that he would maybe not do so well, maybe like a 10-goal season, something like that, where he's like semi-productive. And I thought what would happen is when they get to the highest moments, because my thought was, man, they got to the Champions League final last year without this guy. They're probably going to get. My thought was they're going to get close again, and then there's going to be a big moment on his shoulders, and he'll just fall, like the own goal he scored in the Europa League final, like something like that. I thought that was going to be like the worst case scenario. It was like, damn, he wasn't that $100-something million, real blockbuster signing we needed. He just ended up being another cog. But it's actually way worse than that. He's not even been like he's been
and he's had off-field issues too.
Yeah, that's true. He's if anything, he's made them worse because he's not added anything to the team. And he's created a bit of chaos in there, which is just one of the many reasons as to why. I mean, obviously, they've had the biggest reason is like the Ukraine war, but they've had like a lot of chaos already, and he's just added to that fire. So, yeah.
100%. But yeah, no.
But I don't know. Ronaldo's a good shout. Ronaldo feels like cheating because he's obviously such a good player, and he was obviously going to perform this well, or at least something like that. So it's hard to compare him to that, but at the same time, they're both signings from the last 12 months. So he's in there as well. So other than Ronaldo, I think he's probably like
definitely.
Alrighty, let's quick little preview on the final here, man. We've got a very historical and a game with a lot of story behind it and a lot of pedigree with these two teams as well. Madrid and Liverpool in the final. What do you think about this one, man?
Tough to pick a winner. I think Liverpool. I think Liverpool go in as the favorites. Just sheer man for man. I don't think they're losing many positions to Real Madrid. Besides maybe up front striker, but I mean they play almost a strikerless system anyway, so it's hard to compare Firmino to Benzema. But it's going to be a tough test. I think it's also going. There's partially some emotion to it, especially from the last final. But when you look at the last finals team and this team, it's night and day on the pitch.
Both sides.
Both sides.
Madrid and Liverpool, yeah.
Yeah, both sides. It's night and day. But I think it's cliche, but you can't count out Madrid. Like regardless of they've gone through the gauntlet with Chelsea, they've gone with City, they've gone with PSG. They beat Chelsea were the best team in Europe last year. PSG probably the most highly rated in terms of just pure talent in Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar. They took them out. City were probably the favorites next to Liverpool. And considering
they're the favorites. I think Liverpool has become more appreciated as a contender in the last like 2-3 months. Because they've closed their gap in the Premier League. But when there was like a 9-point gap in the Premier League table, and City were running away with it, I think everyone had them already penciled into the final.
Yeah, so they've slayed all the giants on the way. So now it's the last one. So you can't count him out. Like it's as much as we can say, you know, the thing is you've got a coach like Carlo who again he outdid Pep, who I guess it wouldn't be a crazy thing to say, who we think is one of the smartest coaches that have come in his era. So it's
if not the smartest.
Yeah, exactly. So he outplayed him at his own game, and the team. You can tell that the team plays for Carlo, and he's got all these intangible things about his team that make them better. And it's better that makes him better than the sum of the past. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Liverpool will take it. But I think it's not going to be a thrashing or something like that. I don't think. Sorry, neither team would go down and just cop a ton of goals and sayonara out of the final.
Yeah, I feel like Salah's going to be on one.
I
mean, I think I mentioned it to you before. For Salah, who never talks shit, to talk shit, and say that he wants to see Madrid in the final because we played him before. I want revenge. They fucking what did they dislocate his shoulder or break his arm or something?
Yeah, dislocated
like shoulder. For him to get Salah to talk shit just after Ramadan, he's gonna have a fire in his gut for sure. So I'm excited to see how he performs. I think he's really gonna be on one. Hot take, like the hottest take, I reckon. Everyone talking about what's his name? The last time Liverpool faced Madrid in the final, they had Karius in goals, and what a meme that is. And he had he flapped at a chance, and it was a flap at a chance, and it was also the throw to Benzema, right?
Yeah. The guy was concussed, but fuck,
he was concussed. He was concussed, but what can you do? Like he's not obviously not of the same ilk as like Alisson. I just feel like just through sheer meme energy alone, we're gonna see an Alisson fuck up. I feel like
he's prone to him. He's not wrong.
I feel like everyone's like, but this time we got Alisson, none of that choke stuff. I feel like they may not lose the game, but I just feel like he'll do something like that. Just on pure meme energy alone, I think.
It could be. It could be just that cruel.
Just that cruel. Just the curse of Karius.
Yeah, the ghost of Karius, the poltergeist still chasing.
Yeah. And look, I think that if Madrid wins this game, it's because Benzema puts on just like a ridiculous performance.
I think
they're really, because the thing is I'm really curious about what that Vinny matchup's going to be like with Trent. That's going to be interesting to see play out. So Vinny's on the cards to have a good game as well, I suppose. But I really just think Benzema has to, because I don't think they're going to get a lot of chances against Liverpool.
No.
So I think it'll be one of those things where sort of like that finish against City in the first game, where it was like had no business going in the near post. I think it'll be something like that, where he sort of puts his seal on the Ballon d'Or. That's how Madrid probably wins it if they do. But I think I have to go with Liverpool being the favorite on this one. So let's do some picks. What do you reckon scoreline?
3-2 after extra time, Liverpool.
Wow. Fuck, that's a sweaty one. I reckon this one feels like a 2-1. I'm going to say Liverpool 2-1, but I think they're going to go to extra time.
Yeah, I think there's a goal margin in it. It's I don't think it's going to be scoreless because I don't think either team can be held. I think Real Madrid can be held to nil, but I don't think they'll allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I agree with you. I think Benz will get like a cheeky goal or something like that.
He's just too clever. And Vinny too. Like you can deal with one, but the other one is, and especially the point you make with Trent. We've talked about Trent's, I guess, not so high defensive IQ. So, and if there's
also just like where he gets asked to stand, he does sort of like Cancelo does. He drifts into the midfield when they're on the offense, and that just means Vinny's going to be unmarked. He can't do that as well as mark Vinny at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So it may even be a case where he never gets done, so to speak, by Vinny. He's just never near him. That might be a problem.
Keep him away.
Exactly. So all right, look, let's just end on the A-League here. We'll just do this real quickly. We've made it all the way to the end of the season, sputtering towards the end.
Yeah.
There's still fucking games from like match day 13 being played, but whatever it is. Let's go through who's made it to the playoffs. I'll start from the top. City, victory. Western United, Adelaide United, Central Coast Mariners, and the Knicks. Oh, sorry, the Phoenix. Only one team from New South Wales make the top 6, despite over 40% of the competition being from New South Wales.
Goes to show how shit we've been.
Yeah.
See,
God
it's
awful
the
stuff.
Central Coast. Of all the Sydney teams, the smallest one gets in.
Yep, exactly, and probably the worst start out of all of them as well. Even Western Sydney started better. Everyone
I
started
think
better
they
than
beat
Central
them
Coast.
early in the season too.
Yeah, we did. But look, what can you say? We suck. Collectively as a state this year, we suck. Hot take, I reckon one of the Melbourne teams will win it. The 3 of them.
Hey, 1 in 3 chance, bro. Yeah, it's a curious time because if you look at City, they've actually finished the season not so well. They had the game that they bottled against Perth. They had no business winning that game. It was the end of their season anyway, a long time ago. Sturridge is probably, I don't know, getting a haircut, something like that.
100%.
Has barely played this season. They have no business beating them. McLaren does a ghost. We've seen in big moments McLaren does disappear. They've also been beaten by Victory and Western United and Adelaide as well. So I think it's whoever they face out of those out of those 3 in the top 4. I can't bet against them. I think Victory is also prone to bottling it. We've seen them concede goals where they've pretty much mastered the whole game and haven't got across the line. I think United doesn't lack the firepower as those 2 teams in attack, which always makes them a liability. Because I think, yes, you're a good defensive team, but goals win games. You can keep. There's something with conceding goals. You can only control so much. But if a referee makes a bad call or someone slips because they don't have the right studs or something like that happens, the goal is going to go in. Some freak of nature can always affect that. And then if you can't score goals, how do you get back into it? So that's my concern. I think Adelaide are pretty much a little bit of a dark horse as well. It's just they don't have the talisman to take them over the top, or someone will have to step up, or as a collective, they'll need to hit a gear. Mariners, Phoenix, I think they best of the rest. I think they might be there to make up the numbers. I think Mariners will probably be a good shout for an upset early, but if they get to the final or they get anywhere near the semi, it's going to be a mighty uphill task. But look, I'm going to back the only New South Wales team in there, and the Mariners, who've struggled for so long, been in an absolute quagmire in the last couple of years. But it's good to see them back up on top. Another second season in a row, I believe, in the playoffs, which is good to see for them. But yeah, I'll be back in the Mariners.
Yeah, same. Just because they're the only New South Wales team in there. It's also good to see them in there. Plus, they got the Master Foods bottles, which you can't.
Yeah, exactly. They got the sauce.
Yeah, they got the sauce, exactly. I do think this might be Western United's year. City and Victory performed much more consistently than them throughout the whole season, but they've both shown the tendency in a single game in isolation to make mistakes, to struggle to score goals, to let teams back into it. I feel like Western United, all their best players are like 28 plus. They're all older fellas. I think they're going to be able to hold their heads a little bit more in the playoffs. And I just feel like it's going to be a very tumultuous, very arduous playoff series because no team is coming into this scoring on all cylinders,
Yeah, 100%.
Like City and Sydney, the last 4 or 5 years have finished the league 7, 8, 10 points clear.
Miles ahead, yeah, convincing.
Miles ahead. Whereas now, from City to Adelaide United, it's like, 6 points across the top 4? That's very nice and tight. So everyone's relatively on a very similar wavelength this year. And I just feel like Western United's experience will sort of come into it. Mostly just hoping to see Diamante turn up, because he turns up every playoffs he's been in so far. He turns up. So I'm hoping he doesn't get like a little niggly injury or miss some minutes because he's not fit. Because I reckon they've got a good chance to go all the way this year. Alrighty, follow us on the socials at Last Goal Wins Pod _ on Instagram, at Last Goal Wins Podcast on Facebook, at Last Goal Wins Pod on Twitter. All glory be to Bozza. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.